What the heck is a buyer's agent? What do they do? Do I need one? We'll answer all those questions and more in this video. I'm Joel Craig, your guide to Hudson Valley lifestyle and real estate, and the answer is yes, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, you need one. So here's a scenario that plays out about once a week for me. Hello, this is Joel, a realtor here in the beautiful Hudson Valley. How may I help you? Yeah, are you the listing agent for 123 Main Street? No, sir, I'm not, but I'm very familiar with the property and I'd be happy to arrange a showing. Yeah, no, I just wanted to talk to the listing agent. Sir, you do realize that the listing agent represents the interest of the seller? Yeah, I just want to talk to the listing agent. So let me get this straight. You're about to make the most expensive financial decision of your life and you don't want representation? Yeah, do you have the number for the listing agent? When you start to work with a real estate agent, the first document you should see is an agency disclosure. And this explains the role of the agent when they're working with you. When you're working with a listing agent, he represents the seller. So if you as a buyer are talking to the listing agent, he does not represent your interests. So let me read from the agency disclosure, which explains what a seller's agent or a listing agent does. A seller's agent is an agent who is engaged by a seller to represent the seller's interests. The seller's agent does this by securing a buyer for the seller's home at a price and on terms acceptable to the seller. A seller's agent has, without limitation, the following fiduciary duties to the seller: reasonable care, undivided loyalty, confidentiality, full disclosure, obedience, and duty to account. A seller's agent does not represent the interests of the buyer. So there you have it. If you're looking for the listing agent, and a lot of people do, he does not represent your interests. He has to be fair, he has to be honest, but he does not represent you in this financial transaction. So say, for instance, you're working with the listing agent and you want to put in an offer and you ask him, how much should I offer? Well, he can't actually answer that question for you because remember, he represents the seller. His job is to get the best price possible for the seller. And if he's giving you advice on what to offer, it may not be in your best interest. Or he should basically recuse himself from trying to negotiate an offer with you. You need to tell him what you're going to offer. So here's another analogy. Maybe this will simplify it. Say you want to buy a new Ford F-150. You've seen it advertised maybe on TV or on the internet or in the good old-fashioned newspaper. You can go down to the Ford dealer and a very nice gentleman or woman will meet you and will talk to you about the Ford F-150. They do not represent your interests. You are a customer to them. They represent the dealer. They're trying to sell you something. You are not a client. If you hire an attorney or an accountant, you're a client. They're working in your best interests. So in real estate, you have the opportunity to have someone represent your best interest, and that's a buyer's agent. So you can go down to the dealership and you can walk across the street to the Chevy dealership and you can meet the salesman there and say, can you come over to the Ford dealership with me and help me negotiate for a new Ford F-150? And he'll do that. He'll come over and he'll help you negotiate the best price. He'll tell you any of the drawbacks. Oh, you know, they're not known for their powertrains lasting more than 150,000. You know, things like that. He represents you. You can do that in real estate. Kind of weird, but it definitely works in your favor. Buyer's agent works for you. He can work on almost any transaction and represent you, and in most cases, the seller is paying his commission. So why wouldn't you use a buyer's agent? Why would you go to a listing agent who represents the other side? So I hope that explains the role of a buyer's agent. And yes, if you're buying a house, especially if you're a new home buyer, you really should use a good buyer's agent. So let me read from the agency disclosure what a buyer's agent is. A buyer's agent is an agent who is engaged by a buyer to represent the buyer's interest. The buyer's agent does this by negotiating the purchase of a home at a price and on terms acceptable to the buyer. A buyer's agent has, without limitation, the following fiduciary duties to the buyer: reasonable care, undivided loyalty, confidentiality, full disclosure, obedience, and duty to account. A buyer's agent does not represent the interests of the seller. So if you're considering buying a home, I would strongly recommend that you use a buyer's agent, that you find a good buyer's agent and have them represent you in the purchase of your home. It's Joel Craig with a little piece of advice from Hudson Valley Real Estate and Lifestyle.